Most people don't fail at trading slowly. They fail violently. One day they're confident, watching charts like they've cracked some secret code. And a few weeks later, they're staring at a blown account, wondering how something that looked so obvious destroyed them so completely. And here's the part nobody talks about. The market didn't change. The charts didn't change. The rules didn't change. The only thing that changed was them. That's why trading feels impossible to 95% of people and painfully obvious to the other 5. Not because those 5 are smarter. Not because they have better indicators. Not because they got lucky. But because they're playing a completely different psychological game. Even though the charts look the same, let me tell you something uncomfortable right away. If trading feels impossible to you, confusing, random, emotional, exhausting, it's not because you're broken. It's because you're still trying to trade like a human being, and the market doesn't reward human instincts. It punishes them. I remember the exact moment this hit me. I was sitting alone, late at night, staring at a screen that had already cost me months of effort. I wasn't new anymore. I had learned patterns, strategies, risk management. I knew all the words: breakout, liquidity, stop loss, risk reward. And yet, somehow every time money was on the line, I made the same stupid mistakes, chasing moves I knew I missed, cutting winners early, letting losers breathe because maybe it'll come back. And I couldn't understand how people who seemed average, almost boring, were quietly making money while I was fighting the market like it was a personal enemy. That's when I realized something brutal. Trading isn't hard because it's complex. It's hard because it forces you to unlearn everything that made you successful everywhere else in life. In school, you're rewarded for being right. In jobs, you're rewarded for effort. In sports, aggression wins. In relationships, emotions guide decisions. Trading flips all of that upside down. Being right doesn't matter. Effort means nothing. Aggression gets you punished. And emotions? They are liabilities. 95% of traders never accept this. They say they do, but they don't. They still trade like the market owes them something, like patience should be rewarded, like hard work should guarantee results, like intelligence should matter. And every time the market doesn't cooperate, they feel personally attacked. The 5% don't feel attacked. They don't feel excited either. They feel neutral. And that neutrality is the entire game. Here's the part that sounds insane until you live it. The profitable traders I know don't feel smart when they win, and they don't feel stupid when they lose. Losses don't hurt their identity. Wins don't inflate it. To them, a losing trade isn't failure. It's confirmation that the system is working as designed. That sentence alone separates 95 from 5, because the majority doesn't trade systems. They trade emotions dressed up as strategies. I've seen this pattern repeat endlessly. Someone finds a strategy that works in backtesting or on demo. They feel confident. The moment real money is involved, the strategy stops working. But it didn't. Their behavior changed. They hesitated on entries. They moved stops. They took profits early because the money felt too real. Then they blamed the strategy, went searching for a new one, and repeated the cycle. This is why trading feels impossible. Because most people are constantly restarting, constantly resetting, constantly chasing certainty in an environment that offers none. The 5% stopped chasing certainty a long time ago. They understand something most people refuse to accept. Trading is not about predicting the future. It's about managing uncertainty better than everyone else. That sounds simple. It's not. Because the human brain is wired to hate uncertainty. We want clarity. We want answers. We want guarantees. And the market gives none of that. It only gives probabilities. And probabilities don't feel satisfying. They feel uncomfortable. They feel unfair. They feel like gambling to someone who hasn't accepted the rules. That's why beginners obsess over win rate. They want to be right. They want validation. They want proof they're good at this. The 5% don't care how often they're right. They care how much they make when they are and how little they lose when they're not. That shift sounds small. It's massive. I once watched two traders trade the exact same setup for weeks. Same entries, same stop placement, same targets. One was slowly growing an account. The other was slowly destroying one. The difference wasn't strategy. It was execution under pressure. The losing trader needed each trade to matter. The winning trader didn't. That's the secret nobody wants to hear. You don't make money by caring more. You make money by caring less, but in a very specific way. Less emotionally, more structurally. The 95% care about outcomes. The 5% care about process. And before you roll your eyes because you've heard that before, let me make it real. When a losing trader enters a trade, their mind immediately jumps to profit. They imagine the win. They feel the money before it's earned. Their nervous system is already activated, so when price pulls back even slightly, fear kicks in. They protect imaginary profits. They interfere. They sabotage. When a disciplined trader enters a trade, nothing happens emotionally. It's just execution. If it wins, fine. If it loses, fine. They already accepted the loss before clicking the button. There is no surprise. That's why trading feels obvious to them, because there's no internal drama, no second guessing, no internal negotiation. The impossible feeling most people experience isn't about charts. It's about the constant mental conflict between what they know they should do and what they feel compelled to do in the moment. And that conflict is exhausting. I've talked to traders who said, "No, trading ruined their sleep, their relationships, their confidence." Not because they were losing money, but because they were constantly fighting themselves. The market just exposed the weaknesses that were already there. That's another uncomfortable truth. Trading doesn't create psychological problems. It reveals them. If you're impatient in life, you'll be impatient in trading. If you avoid responsibility, you'll avoid stop losses. If you chase validation, you'll chase trades. If you need control, you'll overtrade. The 5% didn't magically become different people. They were forged. Slowly, painfully, through repetition and brutal self-honesty. Every profitable trader I know has a phase they don't like talking about. A phase where they lost money, not because they didn't know enough, but because they couldn't control themselves. Revenge trading, overconfidence, fear-based exits, strategy hopping, blaming the market, blaming mentors, blaming algorithms, blaming news. Eventually, something snaps. Not in an emotional way. In a quiet, internal way. They stop trying to win. That sounds backwards. But the moment you stop trying to win, you start trading correctly. Because trying to win usually means forcing outcomes. It means taking trades that aren't there. It means increasing size after losses. It means breaking rules because you're desperate to feel better. The 5% don't try to win. They try to execute flawlessly. Winning becomes a byproduct. That's why they can look at the same chart as everyone else and see clarity where others see chaos. They're not emotionally invested in being right. They're invested in consistency. Let me give you a real example. There was a period where I took the same setup every day for weeks. Same market, same time, same rules. Some days it worked. Some days it didn't. But I took it anyway. And something strange happened. The outcome stopped mattering. I wasn't watching every tick. I wasn't panicking on pullbacks. I wasn't euphoric on wins. And that's when profitability started to feel boring. Boring is the goal. 95% want excitement. They want dopamine. They want the rush. They want the story of catching the big move. They want to feel special. The 5% want predictability. They want routine. They want to remove themselves from the equation as much as possible. That's why they journal trades. Not to feel productive, but to remove emotion. That's why they trade smaller than they could. Not because they're scared, but because they respect volatility. That's why they walk away after hitting daily limits. Not because they're disciplined robots, but because they understand fatigue destroys decision-making. To the outside world, it looks obvious. Just follow the plan. But following the plan when your emotions are screaming at you feels impossible if you haven't trained for it. And that's another thing people misunderstand. Discipline isn't something you decide to have. It's something you build through structure. Most struggling traders rely on motivation. Motivation fades. The 5% rely on systems that make bad behavior harder. They trade at specific times. They limit the number of trades. They predefine risk. They automate where possible. They don't give themselves room to negotiate with impulses. The 95% want freedom. They want flexibility. They want to feel the market. And that freedom becomes their downfall, because the market doesn't care how you feel. Here's the cruel irony. The moment you stop needing trading to change your life is the moment it starts working. As long as you need the market to save you, you'll force trades. As long as you need it to prove something, you'll overtrade. As long as you're emotionally attached to outcomes, you'll sabotage consistency. The 5% don't trade to escape their lives. They trade to execute a process. That's why they don't panic during drawdowns. They expect them. That's why they don't feel invincible during winning streaks. They know variance is temporary. And that's why trading looks obvious to them. Not easy. Obvious. They see the game clearly. Everyone else is playing to feel good. They're playing to survive long enough for probabilities to work. Most people never last long enough. They quit right before the emotional lessons sink in. They quit after a drawdown. They quit after a bad month. They quit because it stopped working. But what really stopped working was their tolerance for discomfort. Trading isn't about learning more. It's about tolerating more. More uncertainty, more boredom, more delayed gratification, more emotional restraint. The 5% built that tolerance. Slowly, quietly, without shortcuts. That's the part YouTube thumbnails don't show you. No one wants to hear that the path to profitability feels dull, repetitive, and mentally exhausting before it feels clear. No one wants to hear that confidence comes after consistency, not before. No one wants to hear that most losses aren't market-caused, they're self-inflicted. But that's the truth. And here's the final thing I'll leave you with. Trading feels impossible when you're trying to control the market. It feels obvious when you realize the only thing you were ever meant to control was yourself. The market isn't out to get you. It isn't random. It isn't unfair. It's just brutally honest. It reflects back exactly who you are under pressure. The 95% never like what they see. The 5% accept it, adjust, and keep going. And that difference changes everything.